Hi, this is Paul, and I didn't set this up. Our own upcycle, also known as Harris, set this up. So I'm gonna turn it over to him and see what he wants to do.
Yeah, greetings everyone. This is Harris, also known as Apps or Upcycle. And as you all know, uh, the good Dr. Jordan Peterson just had an appearance on Jubilee, the Jubilee channel, in a very specific format called Surrounded, where he was surrounded by, I'm not sure if it was 20 or 25 uh, atheists, but one of them, one of the participants there, was our new friend Greg here. And basically, I reached out to Greg. Personally, I've enjoyed that conversation.
Thank you.
And I really, for me, two people really stood out. One of them was Greg, and the other one was a lady called Zina.
It was
She
great.
yeah, she was really good, and I think she was the one that got the chance to have a debate of 10 minutes at the
Mhm.
very end. So yeah, I had this notion that everybody is gonna be discussing about that specific talk. Um, as far as I am concerned, at least within this little corner of the internet, this is how we call it, Greg. Not a lot of people there are happy about it,
Yeah.
so yeah, I really wanted to give the chance to Greg to also explain to us a bit what was going on in terms of the actual format, but also his experience with debating Jordan Peterson. So yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
and Paul was very gracious to host this conversation. So thank you, Paul.
All right,
Thank you.
no
I'm
problem.
excited.
So, Craig, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself first?
Yeah. So I have essentially stumbled into being in this video. I am not somebody who is a debater in terms of a career. I'm not a social media personality. Um, I dropped out of college, worked in sales for a while, and I recently went back to finish up my bachelor's. And I do some urban ecology work with a friend who's a professor at UCLA. And I'm thinking about, going to grad school once I finish up my degree. So I'm not really who you would expect to be debating Jordan Peterson on religion on a big video. But I literally just stumbled into it. I had a friend who recommended I apply to Jubilee, this fun YouTube channel, and I did. And I live about 20 minutes from where they film all these things. And they ended up
Um,
saying, "Hey, do you want to be in these videos?" And I've just found it a very interesting and valuable experience. And so I continue to do them. But and I do
so
think
you've
that my
done other ones.
yeah, this is this is my third shoot in my fourth video because one of them was split up into two videos.
Okay. Well, tell me a little bit about the home you grew up in.
Sure. Um, it was a very well-educated family. My dad went to Harvard and Stanford. My mom had a master's from University of Arizona, I think. Went to a very good school. Not really religious. Sort of like we go to like, church on Easter, but because I think my parents grew up with like a religious tradition, but I wasn't really informed of anything. I didn't really get like a strong opinion either way about religion from that. So I kind of have I'm maybe a little bit more open-minded than people who either have been like taught that religion is all horrible or have had like a really negative personal experience with religion. Because I'm not really anti-religious, I'm just not religious. Like I don't think that religion is inherently bad.
So, if you go to church on Easter, what kind of a church would you go to?
I don't know. I'm not sure. It was just the church.
Well,
That's
okay. Was it a Catholic church?
maybe it was like I think Presbyterian. Maybe
Oh,
I
okay. Okay.
honestly don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are you studying? What are you getting your degree in?
Yeah. Evolutionary biology and ecology.
Okay. So when like when this show, so this show basically has a studio in LA
Yeah.
and they do these things. And I haven't watched much of the channel. I've seen a few things sort of pop up on the feed. But they've got a list of people that are in the area that could probably, and then you've got some topics that you're
Yes.
interested in.
Yeah, so basically, they have sort of, they always are trying to get new people in, but they also have sort of a roster of people who consistently, do decently well in the videos, are available on short notice. And I have sort of entered that roster. And so occasionally I will get an email inviting me to apply for a video. They also have a public page with casting opportunities. And you answer a few questions, you film like a 2-minute video, and then someone, zooms with you, and they basically give you like a mini version of the video. They're like, how would you respond to this? Or how would you respond to this? You give them your thoughts, and then they take that recording of the Zoom meeting to the casting director, who then picks the people who are going to be in the video.
Oh, really? So that's
Yeah.
interesting. So it's casted. Do they measure foot speed? Is it like the NFL? I mean, because you got to get to that chair. Um,
Yeah. No, that's you find out once you're there how quickly you can get up and run.
so interrupt ups if you want to
No,
interrupt
no,
or
I,
interject.
I, I just wanted to make a very small interjection uh, because I was listening to a video from Greg that he uploaded to his own channel. Very interesting stuff, by the way. And
What's the name of
he,
your channel, Greg?
It's Greg Does Videos. Very creative name.
yeah,
All run together?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
and in that video, you call yourself a rando,
What?
You
a
call yourself a
rando.
rando?
Yeah, yeah. I'm just a random guy. Like that's what's so funny. And I yeah, and I bring that with me. I'm very deliberate in when I'm on set on the camera, not putting on any airs. Like I'm not trying to hide behind this characterization of like I'm just some guy. So anything I say that's incorrect, I'm just a guy. But anything I get any debate I win, that's embarrassing because I'm just some guy. I'm not trying to do that, but I also
Uh-huh.
just try to be very honest with the audience. Like, yeah, like I'm clever and I've read about this a bit, but I'm not an expert. I'm not I'm trying my best.
So, ups, did you find Greg via how did you two connect?
Basically, YouTube served me Greg's channel. He uploaded a video.
Really?
Yeah,
Algo did it.
Yeah.
yeah. Alco did it. So yeah, I have a very peculiar relationship with the YouTube algorithm.
Yeah.
It's complex, you know.
What's interesting too is that Jubilee actually lists the social media of everyone in the description of each video, but they don't
Oh.
advertise that they do it. And so there'll always be all these comments like, "Where can I find this person?" And
Oh.
yeah, but you can't. That's a little. If you want to talk to anyone else from these videos, just check the description.
Oh. Interesting. Well, so when now they often do sort of either religious things or culture war things. When you sort of submit an application, do you just check off boxes of things you'd be interested in talking about, or how does that work?
Yeah. So when you apply, you go. It's like jubilee.com/casting or something like that. They have all this like demographic survey where you say your ethnicity, your gender, your religion, your sexual orientation, and you just click all of these boxes, and then you fill out a short survey specific to the video you're actually applying for, and you upload a short video. And what I have sort of inferred is I think that once you submit that initial application, you're then in some sort of database or something they have. And they haven't told me this, I'm just guessing, where it's like, okay, we need like, like young Christian men for a video. I think that they must have something where they just click young Christian men, and everyone who's clicked those boxes pops up, and then they can watch their video, because the initial thing I applied for was just a very silly video. And then like months later, they reached out to me about a completely different video that also matched me, but I'd never applied for. And I was like, oh, okay, they must have been scrolling in their little database and found me.
Oh. Do you get paid to do this?
A little bit.
Oh, okay. Um,
It's you mostly have to find some sort of value in the experience.
yeah, well, I believe that. Well, it's like a lot of Hollywood little jobs. Um, well, how much did you know about Jordan Peterson before going into this thing?
I binged Jordan Peterson before going into it because I am friends with Cade, who's the guy who went first in the video. He is an ex-Catholic. He was training to be a Catholic monk, and him and I met on a different video. And Cade is a Jordan Peter was a Jordan Peterson super fan. And I got the so in the first Jubilee video I was ever on, I asked a casting director like verbally, like, can I talk to other Jubilee people about videos I'm cast in to see if they're cast too? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. And so I talked to Kate. I was like, hey, are you in the atheism one? He was like, yeah, and I think it's Jordan Peterson. And I was like, why do you think that? And he was like, well, they were asking me in the interview, how do you respond to this? How do you respond to this? And it was all Jordan Peterson stuff. And so I think it's
Interesting.
Jordan Peterson. And I was like, okay. And then I ended up going on I was on an international trip. I was actually in Japan when I got the confirmation, and I had these really long flights. And so I downloaded a bunch of Jordan Peterson debates to my phone. And then while I was on these flights, I just listened to him talking, and I crash coursed on Jordan Peterson. And then it was Jordan Peterson. And I was like, cool. And to clarify, Jubilee did not tell us this. Just my very clever
Oh.
friends just sort of like figured it out. And it was like a
Mm.
guess that it was going to be Peterson. And it was.
How long is it, do you think, when they sort of when they get a guest and then that whole process in terms of, I mean, because it sounds, I mean, first of all, I understand Hollywood is Hollywood and things are set up to be, boom, it's just supposed to be flat. But of course, behind it, there's, you're going to cast people and you got to set it up. And it takes a lot to put something like that together, especially if in a sense you want to make a good show.
Yeah.
So, how long do you think there's sort of the run up until well, let me ask it this way. How long ago do you think Jordan Peterson agreed to do this thing?
So we filmed it in, I think, late March. And I imagine that they got him before they started casting for it, because when they cast for it, one thing they do is they say you have to be available on this date. And so if they cast this whole video and then they had to try to find somebody to be in the center who's famous, who's busy, and say, hey, can you film a video with us on this day specifically? That would make it harder. So I assume that they scheduled a video around the availability of the featured debater. And for that reason, I would imagine that Jordan Peterson was cast probably at least, a couple months before they filmed it.
Yeah, I would. It'd be really interesting to know who initiated this because
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson's a pretty big get. And in a space like this, I mean, I came home from church. You probably know nothing about me. I'm a pastor of a church in
Oh,
Sacramento,
cool.
California. And I came home from church and I was, and I opened up my phone and it's like, I thought, oh,
Yeah.
I was a little, and then the clip that they lead off with, it's like,
Yeah, yeah, Danny.
oh gosh, this is
Yeah. So
the whole video itself was quite a bit more reasonable, I'd say.
no, they always start with the fiery bit to
Yeah.
get you. Yeah, so Jordan Peterson works at the Daily Wire, and a lot of people at the Daily Wire have gone on.
Oh,
Michael Knowles went on. He's my first ever Jubilee video was talking to him. Ben Shapiro's gone on. Um, And so I think that it must have been through the Daily Wire connection, because to my understanding, and based on my kind of perception of things, it's so far gone very well for every Daily Wire person who's gone on to Jubilee. They look good. The audience says, hey, I haven't heard of this person. I like them. There's a lot of comments like that. They get clips. They get to make their own kind of little video after. Like Michael Knowles made one. He had like scotch. He was like the he was like, "Ah, I debated these people," and it's you. So I think that the Daily Wire probably looked at the fact that this has gone very well so far for their roster, and they're like, "Hey, let's get Jordan on."
Yeah. By the way, Alex O'Connor also had an
Yep.
episode there. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think because of the way Jordan Peterson is using this long, takes a lot of time to make his arguments. I
Hmm.
don't think the specific format of the surrounded, format in Jubilee uh, helped him to articulate
It's
it. Yeah.
I think it's a terrible format for him. One thing, because I mean, he does a podcast where he talks for 3 hours. I'm not saying that's bad, but I'm saying that's what he's used to doing. And in this environment, um, there's a time limit, but also the people. So in case people don't understand just the format of Surrounded, so there's 20 to 25 people usually in a circle. There's a guy in the center. Person in the center says, "Here's my claim." And then we one of us gets to talk to him, and then once a certain amount of us have raised a flag, we restart the process of getting someone else to go in, and we can put up the flag because we think someone's doing a bad job, but also at a certain point we put up the flag because we want other people to have a turn. And if we never flag them out, then they get to talk for the whole time. And so not only is there a time crunch in that each topic is debated for 20 minutes, but at a certain point, outside of Jordan Peterson's control, we're going to swap in a new person. And so, if he doesn't even have really 20 minutes to make his argument because he has the amount of time allotted for the one person he's talking to. And then when the next person comes in, they almost never go, okay, let's pick up on where that person left off. They say, here is my issue with the thing, and you start over. So he didn't even really have 20 minutes per claim. He had like 5 to 7 minutes per argument with each person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Greg got a lot of time
Yeah.
compared to the other one. Yeah. So
Yeah. One thing, by the way, on this topic of so when he first got there, they wanted to have him. And by the way, in case anyone's wondering, I did sign an NDA, but it's about like trade secrets. So I think I'm allowed to say like things that happen that are just kind of, funny and not really instructive of, the Jubilee magic, right? I'm not revealing but but yeah, so we were all sitting and then he walked up to film his intro where he's supposed to say, "I'm Jordan Peterson. I'm a professor and I work at the Daily Wire, and today I'm surrounded." And they say, "Okay, Jordan, let's do the intro. So just, introduce yourself and say you're surrounded." And he goes, "Who am I? I'm a father. I'm a thinker. I'm a professor, although the people at the university don't like that very much. I suppose today I'm engaged in battle." And he just kind of kept going and at a certain point, I think he went for like a minute or two. The director was like, "Okay, that was really, really good. Let's just do another one that's a little shorter." And that was where I realized, like, oh, he doesn't. I don't think he's watched the show. I don't think he knows what this is. Oh no. Uh-oh. And that was my first sense of like, okay, like this is not gonna go well for him.
Oh, that sheds so much light on a lot.
It's like he thought it was a podcast. I don't,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I mean, oh, you know who Joe Rogan is, I assume.
yeah, of course.
So Jordan Peterson sort of works on Joe Rogan speed.
Yeah, yeah. And he was getting mad too. Like he was upset that he was like, "Why are you guys trying to like win the argument?" And it's like it's a debate show.
That's the shtick. The whole shtick is owning your opponent.
Yeah,
That's the whole thing.
it's like if I was playing one-on-one basketball and I was like, "Stop trying to steal the ball. Like, let me shoot my shot."
No, I'm gonna run with it.
Yeah. It's like,
why do you keep stopping me from running with this
yeah,
ball?
yeah, like we can talk off camera, like and it's
Oh no,
yeah.
so Oh. So basically, a lot of my audience has watched, because when you say a crash course on Jordan Peterson, a lot of my audience has watched hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of Jordan Peterson. And so they are, and a lot of my audience has very different opinions on Jordan Peterson,
Right.
but they know him pretty
Yeah.
well, at least via the videos.
Yeah.
And part of what came through, which I think was not helpful for him, was the anger and frustration. Yeah,
100%. We picked up on that. There were times when he would kind of, get angry at people. And I think there was more, not everything makes it into the final cut, right? They film more than they can use.
that was one of my
I
questions: is how is it just kind of chunked out, or is it sort of one, or is it more heavily edited?
Um, there's stuff that doesn't make it in, but you get the gist of it. So, like for example, when I was talking to Jordan, and I was talking, my central critique of him was I felt like he kind of wants us to, in my opinion, it felt like he was asking us to make some sort of like super statement where in every sense of every word in the sentence we agree with and will defend the statement. And I was trying to appeal to his sense of kind of common parlance. And I said, Jordan, if I ask you where the bathroom is, you're not going to say North America. You get what I'm saying. And that didn't make it in. But
That's a
that was
great
the
line.
thrust. Thank you. And that was the thrust of my argument, though. And you
Yeah.
got this. You got what I meant, right? And so
Yep.
they cut some things down for like brevity.
Yeah.
But I have in my time on Jubilee, I have never really experienced like deceptive editing where it's like, oh, they're completely misrepresenting kind of the
Yeah.
thrust of what someone was saying. But just because there's more that happens there, to my recollection, there were additional times that he got kind of angry that you don't see, just because not everything makes it. And there were a lot of times when us in the circle, especially when we didn't have a camera trained on us, kind of went like, wow, he seems really mad at us.
Yeah. 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 And there were, I mean, another element of it that seemed like a really, well, it wasn't his best look when he would sort of act like a scolding father. I mean, that comes
Yeah,
through too.
Mm.
yeah, and especially a lot of us are older than the audience thinks. Like I'm in my 30s. The guy Danny, who was in the clip where he's
Yeah.
like, "You're nothing." He's older than me. But a lot of people like it kind of looks like Danny. He looks like he's 19 years old. And so then to see Peterson, yeah, the analysis is not justification, and I'm not justifying
Right.
this way of looking at debates through this lens of like trivial things, but
Right.
analytically we can be honest that aesthetics play a big role, and it's not a great look.
It was funny because one of my sons, I'm sorry, Ups. One of my sons, I was watching the video when I was fixing something in my backyard because yesterday was Memorial Day, for our foreign listeners where we had a holiday. And one of my sons walked by, and he knows who Jordan Peterson is. He's watched a few of my videos, but he said something like, "It sounds like a bunch of college students harassing an elderly man."
Elder abuse, yeah, no, seriously, yeah, it's and
Which isn't, I think, what either side wants. But
no, yeah, well, I mean, it's like the thing is the people in the circle do have sort of a diverse set of motivations. One of the videos I was on, I won't get too specific, so I don't want to, be mean, but there is someone there who is clearly there just to like sell something. Like they had like an Instagram store, and then they were like wearing something that they sold in their Instagram store, and then they like went up to the middle and they just did a really bad job. But then yeah, I'll make sure, right? And then there are people like me where it's like, oh, I'm kind of I'm enjoying this, but it's not my job, it's not my aspiration. In general, I think that most people there want to have like a win in some way or another, but um and I think for some people that is a win. If it's like Jordan Peterson looks very silly, I think that's like, okay, that is my goal. And so I don't think Jordan Peterson wants that, but I think I think most of us who were there are not too bothered by that, if that makes sense. Like it wasn't I wasn't trying to, I didn't want him to, get all upset, but like as I'm again, it's like I think there are people there for whom that might have been the goal.
Yeah.
What I wanted to add earlier on is that what you clarified there with the age of the participants,
Yeah.
it's very, very interesting and helpful because one of the main comments that I've gathered around is that Jordan Peterson was debating kids, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Little kid, he can't. He used to be this intellectual giant, and now he can't handle a child. Yeah, that seems to be kind of the narrative that's coming out of it. And some of them are like, there's this guy Parker who is there. He's a famous live stream debater. He goes on TikTok and he goes live on TikTok every day and
Uh,
debates people for hours. And he is a big figure, and I think he's like like early 20s. So there were people there who were college
yeah.
kids, but not all of us were.
Yeah. It just what you said about, going on there because they have a brand or something, just makes me think of the Bachelor, Bachelorette, you're not
Yeah,
here for the right reasons. Well, what
yeah,
exactly is the right reason to be there?
right.
Have some fun. It looks like a fun. I think if you go into it sort of with a lighthearted understanding that a context like that, you're not necessarily going to do careful discernment of the secrets of the universe here.
Yeah,
That's not the environment for such a
no.
thing.
No. Yeah, no, it's like, so I mean, first of like, I'm the only times I've ever debated in my life have been on camera for Jubilee. And one thing I learned very quickly is you just flowchart out everything you think the other person's going to say ahead of time, right? Like it's inherently a flawed way to arrive at things because like if I'm having a conversation with somebody, I can say, "What? Let me look that up really quick," right? Or let me think about that. And so to have this sort of there's an inherent performance to it. Um, and yeah, to me, I think that there just needs to be a point for the participant where they just kind of analyze it ethically and think, okay, like is the video, in terms of like the kind of outcome of this video, is it a worse video with me being there versus some random person being there, right? Like
Yeah.
let's take something that we could all agree on, right? Like the Earth is round, right? If I show up to debate the famous Earth is flat guy and I've done no prep, I have no plan, and I just show up and just look stupid, and then that guy gets to take a clip of it and just look at all these people, they're stupid. Now I have, in some marginal but still real way, advanced a cause that is bad for the world, right? And so I think that is where you have to just double check with yourself that you're being honest about your abilities and your preparation and your discipline. But beyond that, yeah, there's a huge array of reasons to go on a show like this. And I think for a lot of us, there's maybe even a mixture of them. Like we couldn't even point to one reason why we do it.
yeah, to me at least, it was evident that Greg was really prepared. And I
Thank
really
you.
love how your initial point about polysemy. That was really good, man. That was really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I learned that word because I was listening to, I was binging Jordan Peterson, and I got this sense that okay, he's talking about things that are not just like incidentally similar, right? Like if I say the right to bear arms or a bear is running through the forest, those are completely unrelated. But yeah, yeah, polysemy is just it's like this linguistic term for words that have related meanings. Like if I say that I'm cold in a literal physical sense, it's a lack of heat, right? If I say, oh, socially he's kind of a cold person, it's like a lack of friendliness, right? So it's a related meaning. And yeah, I feel like Jordan Peterson, is just very excited about, like, oh, well, you can talk about like you believe in yourself, right? And it's like, okay, and it's interesting. And I wanted to both concede to him that it was interesting to kind of like demonstrate some goodwill, but then also just kind of put a word to it because I think that's powerful. Like I remember I was thinking about today when I was like 7 or 8 years old, another kid was being sarcastic to me, and they were like, "Oh, like you're so fun," and I didn't know the word sarcastic, and then I was trying to explain to an adult they're being mean, and they're like, "Well, why are they being mean?" I was like, "Well, they said I'm like fun and great," and it's like I feel like words empower us to explain things. And I was like, okay, that's just a very neat way to package my critique that also will succinctly describe, this thing that I feel that Jordan does.
No, I think that was a good point. Now that Ups mentioned that, now I remember. I've only listened to the video once so far,
Right.
and I did remember. And usually I listen to these videos when I'm working on something in the yard or I'm washing dishes
Right.
or and I do remember someone making that point because I think that's a really important point. So with Peterson and this whole portion of the world that Jordan Peterson, Jonathan Peugeot talk a lot about symbolism,
Yeah.
and symbolism gets traction when people have a sense that these two things really do connect in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can have all sorts of. I used to have a Bible study where I had an unmedicated schizophrenic participate, and it was what was fascinating to me about him was that he had these little interesting word associations, and once
Yeah.
one word would start, like Henry Waxman was a politician from the state of California, and his daughter knew this guy when he was growing up. So every now and then something would trigger the Henry Waxman's daughter conversation. I thought, oh, these how words sort of
Yeah.
connect. It's a
Yeah.
very interesting situation.
Yeah. And the thing is, I think a lot of people who, like me, disagree on the sort of fault line of like this very literal definition of God would be happy to have the conversation about like, well, in this way and that way, in this poetic way,
Yeah,
provided that there's the initial kind of establishment of, okay, in this way that's important to us, you're recognizing that this is our opinion. And of course, you're not going to hear from those people because, people scream on the internet. But I think that like the people who are not screaming on the internet don't mind, many of us don't mind that sort of discussion. It's interesting.
yeah.
But to kind of elevate that to the level of like not of like of just refusing to communicate in a way where we have a shared understanding of words. It just that's what it can feel like for us sometimes with the Peterson stuff, where it's like, no, you are religious because, and this is not something he has said literally, but it's like, you are religious because you have hobbies. And what is a hobby? A hobby is something that you're devoted to and you enjoy and you do frequently. And, you have a community and all those things describe church. So, like, you go to church if you play pickleball. And it's like, no. And the thing I didn't say in the video is, I actually it bothers me on be kind of not to be offended on behalf of other people, but like it almost bothers me on behalf of my friends who are religious because like I have friends who are super Christian and it means so much to them. It's like, okay, you're kind of you're kind of trivializing this. And it's
Oops.
Uh-oh, we lost him. We
Yeah, I
lost
guess.
him, Ups. You know
Yeah,
what you started with this though, Ups, don't you? Now that everybody in the corner knows those links are down there, you know what's going to happen, don't you?
yeah. I do.
yeah, I'm
Okay.
so sorry. I'm so
You
sorry
hit the
about that.
wrong button on the
Fine,
phone,
Yeah,
huh?
fine.
I had a call come in, and I tried to decline it, and then I effed. But I was just saying, sorry about that. I'll just restart the point. I get. Yeah. So
Sure.
Can you flip the screen?
what's that?
Your
Can you
screen
flip
hasn't
the
your
phone?
screen hasn't flipped in Zoom.
Oh, okay. One sec.
Either way's fine.
We'll figure this.
We
Well,
can we can mentally there we
here we
go.
go. Okay.
We
So
can,
you want me to just restart the? I can just restart it, or
yeah, restart the point. That's fine.
yeah. Um. So not to be offended on behalf of other people, but one thing that kind of bugs me about the way that Peterson kind of, he elevates everything to religion, but in doing so lowers religion to everything. Is, I have friends who are quite Christian, and I know how meaningful it is to them. And to be for him to say, like, well, it's everything's religion in a way. It's like it just it kind of bugged me a bit. I didn't bring it up because again, it's not. I don't think it's my place to like to be like, well, on behalf of I let the Christians speak for themselves. But I have noticed in the sort of response to the video, there have been a number of people who have expressed that as well. Like, hey, like you're saying that, having a like a sense of right and wrong is religion. Like that's not, like what are you talking about? And so
Yeah.
yeah, it's I think that it almost has unified the kind of theists and non-theists in our collective annoyance.
Yeah. Allow me quickly to just give some background information for everyone listening. During the Jubilee video, Dr. Peterson presented 4 claims, and Greg participated and debated Jordan on his first claim that it was atheists don't understand what they are rejecting.
Yeah,
So
when we reject God, we don't understand what we're rejecting. And yeah, and so I and again, because the format is not really a Peterson friendly format, I knew that we didn't have like 7 hours to get to it. And so I front loaded my whole critique
Yeah.
into my opening statement. So I was like, okay, here's my summary of your position, which is kind of risky to do in a debate, right? Because then he can say, well, I didn't say that, you said that. And I was like, hey,
Yeah.
listen, like here's my understanding of what you think, and here's my problem with it.
Yeah.
And that is my problem with it, where it's like we can't, words have multiple meanings, but we can't conflate those meanings.
Right. Well, it's interesting because for normies watching at home, it's really easy to Monday morning quarterback. But when you understand that, hey, this is an opportunity to talk to Jordan Peterson, that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
What do I want to do with this? At first you gotta win the race to the chair.
yeah,
And then the pace is so fast
yeah,
that, especially with someone like Jordan, I don't know how many of your videos, once he gets talking, it's kind of hard to stop that train. And
yeah,
so it's just going to create a lot of the kinds of stuff that we saw. And
yeah.
and
No,
especially, I remember the guy who Jordan was trying to make the point about worship. And if you sort of equate worship with attention or devotion, so that then opens up the thing, do I worship my wife? Well, sort
right.
of. You might say to your friends, I worship the ground she walks on. But everybody sort of has an intuitive understanding that what people are doing in church or towards a deity or within a religious tradition lives in the same world as your devotion to your family and your devotion to your children. And then, of course, when Mary comes up, it's like there's a there's a distinction that is often made in certain traditions between veneration and worship. And
Right.
of course, theology is nothing if not very careful distinctions and nuances between words, even using the same word. So it's just rife for that kind of equivocation.
Yeah, and I think that it's a little bit like I tend to parse out what something is functionally from what someone intends it to be, because I don't think we can often speak to intentions, but like in terms of kind of impact, I think it's sort of like functionally a little bit inflammatory as well, because like imagine if I told you you're an atheist and you said no, I'm not, and I said, well, atheists want to think about things critically, and atheists like value science, and and so like in that sense you're an atheist. Like there's something just sort of fundamentally a little bit annoying about that, where it's like I'm telling you, I'm religious, I'm like professionally religious, right? Like I'm a pastor. We don't no, but like yeah, I think a lot of religious people don't just don't understand that, like, they're not really religious. And there's something just a little bit kind of condescending. Like why are you, I know I'm telling you that I am this. Well, no, you're not. Well, no, in this way, I am this. Well, but yeah, but sure, but in this other way, you're not. And like, I can just, and again, I get that it's kind of fun to dive down these rabbit holes, but you also just have to consider just baseline, like, okay, how would you feel if someone did this to you about your self identifications and it felt like word games and it felt silly?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is where things like prophilicity uh, come into play. Like some people, they just,
You could explain that word? I don't know if he knows it.
yeah, basically there is a philosopher, Mueller,
Hmm.
uh, that he came up with this notion of prophilicity,
Hmm.
uh, where is that like we have our identities, but we also have this urge to not put on a show, but when the cameras are rolling or when we are on social media, we have this sense of this amplified sense that we need to look in a very specific way
Yeah,
in terms of prophilicity.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
That makes sense to me. It's a new term to me, but I follow and I would agree.
Yeah, well, and a show like this. Well, let me ask you. So you've done a few of these shows.
Hmm.
What are sort of has it been fun? Has it been enriching? Have you made new friends? I mean, when you think about your participation in this, what are some of your takeaways?
Yeah. So it has been fun in a way. I am a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. I grew up doing extreme sports. I like to, watch scary movies. I will go to like these haunted houses that they make in LA where it's like Universal Studios will make a haunted house that's like it's like a film set level of quality. And I'm like, oh, I'm
Wow.
gonna go at 1 in the morning, so I'm the only one in there. And so I kind of have an attraction to extreme experiences.
Huh.
And so in that way, I think the same things that would make this like nauseating for people kind of makes it fun for me. Like, oh wow, I'm gonna be talking to some famous person in front of like 5 million people, and if I mess up, I can't start over. Like that sounds cool. Like something a little bit wrong with me. But even with that, yeah, no, I have made really interesting friends from it because the people who do the casting, I think, do a good job of finding people who have interesting things to say and have interesting experiences. And I do think, in general, it is kind of hard in adulthood to find interesting people to be friends with, right? We're all kind of atomized. And so it is, in a very strange way, kind of a social thing. And yeah, and I feel like also I've sort of accomplished my kind of just baseline sort of ethical goal, or I've kind of met my sort of ethical bar of like, I think that I do better on these things than some random person. Because I think that if the people who prepare and who have some sort of skill or experience stop going on, the videos aren't going to stop being made. We're in Los Angeles County. There's 10 million people here who would cut off an arm to have 3 seconds in the background of a viral video because they're so desperate to break into something. And so it's like um yeah, so I feel like I'm feel like I'm improving the outcome, and it's kind of a novel experience in the moment. It's then I've made friends. Yeah, I have a very positive feeling overall about my participation.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
No, you're right about the and what was her name? Zima or Zena?
Yeah,
Zima.
yeah,
She did very well. And
yeah.
she's beautiful, she's charismatic, and people are going to click on this. And if she doesn't have a YouTube thing, it's probably going to start Instagram. Women usually do Instagram or TikTok or whatever. So I can totally understand that, and she'll be doing the rounds. And I was just when you dropped off, I told Harris that. So part of what's going on here is that there's a little internet community
Hmm.
that is sort of downstream from Jordan Peterson. And we talk about a lot of these things quite a bit. We do a lot of discussions like this, but much more
Hmm.
long form.
Right.
And now Up's basically let everybody know that under that Jubilee thing, there's a whole bunch of links. And the thing is, we have, oh, I don't know, a couple of dozen people who are going to be like, I got to talk to one of these guys and make a
Yeah.
video. So who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah.
Who
And it's
knows what'll
interesting.
happen?
Like even this is interesting, right? You,
Yeah.
you guys are interesting, and I get to have this interesting experience. So yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I totally get it. I'm in Sacramento, so it doesn't work for me. But I Well, I got on the internet about, no, I've been on the internet a long time, but my YouTube thing started sort of downstream from Jordan Peterson. I'm a pastor. He was doing these biblical series, and I was
Yeah,
listening to him, and I thought, oh, there's some other things to say about this. And so then I
yeah,
started talking about it, but then people started talking to me. So I started talking to the people talking to me, and that's
yeah.
sort of what
There you
happened.
go.
So,
Yeah,
um, very interesting.
yeah.
Um, Go ahead.
I want to add something. First of all, from what I understand, the two of you live nearby, right?
We live
California
about
is a big
five.
state,
We're about 5 hours away from each other by car.
All right,
Yeah,
okay. And the other
but we
thing I
don't need
wanted,
to take a boat, unlike Cyprus.
there you go.
yeah.
Yeah,
So the other thing I wanted to add is like, um, yeah, I really liked it that someone like Greg, that he identifies like a random person, he got the chance to have this debate with even this short exchange with Jordan Peterson. And at some point, there was a particular exchange that I really loved. And Jordan Peterson goes to Greg, um, you are uncomfortable with the questions. And Greg replies to him very fast, and you are throwing a spaghetti on the wall. And
Oh, you're
yeah.
the
Jordan
spaghetti
replies,
I'm
guy.
the spaghetti guy.
Ah!
Yeah,
Jordan Peterson
yeah.
replies, I am not.
Yeah,
So
and the thing is, I
it
said I
was cool.
feel like, right? Because like what I can say that's a statement of fact is I feel like this. This is my
Yeah,
understanding, right? I didn't,
yeah.
and so it's, but it's just, yeah, no, it was just that was funny to me because I was being very sincere. I was just like, I
Yeah.
don't like, I just felt like we're kind of, we're going to this place. Like I kind of opened up the discussion with here's what I feel like you think, and here's what I think about it, and then he was like, do you think there's an underlying order of things? And I was like, okay, like I don't understand. Oh, sure, let's talk about that. And then it was like, how do you know that true is true? And I was like, okay, I kind of feel like I'm just going over here and over here. And it's challenging, especially because you are in a diminished capacity because there's adrenaline. It's like it's not like a relaxed conversation. And so it's just like, wait, like I just feel like you're yanking me around. And then he was like, you just don't want to answer because you're scared. And then I was like, well, hey, if you're gonna mischaracterize why I'm asking you that question, then okay, I'll clear it up. I just feel like you're throwing spaghetti at the wall. The other thing I said to him that is sort of, I think, catching on a bit is at the very, very end, I said, I feel like you just kind of retreat into this semantic fog. And then he was like, no, I'm advancing, you're retreating. And I have seen the phrase semantic fog has kind of upticked a bit in usage. So that
Yeah.
that might follow him around a little bit. It might be the new drunk on symbols. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's, as we were talking about before, there's multiple layers of motivation. And
Mhm.
again, I've got some daughters and daughter-in-laws, and sometimes we'll watch The Bachelor, Bachelorette together.
Right.
It's usually not my main form of television viewing, but for them, I watch with them because
Yeah,
it's
there you
fun to
go.
do something with
Yeah.
them. And you, I mean, there is a perverse incentive to, like, the guy who said, "No, you're nothing," and it's like, oh, if you say something, I mean, that's part of the, I don't know. It's part of the perverse incentives of the internet that if you say something really dramatically, something dramatic, let's say, if you say something dramatic, that then, you do that, well, chances are you're going to get to be in the teaser. And if you get to be in the teaser, because, I don't know how much you look at your algorithms on your YouTube channel, but, a good percentage of your audience bails in the first 30 seconds
Exactly.
and decides whether or not they're going to do anything, which is exactly why you have the teaser, which is exactly why you set the thing up as you do. And so then you have some perverse incentives to do some things like that. Another thing that struck me too, though, while I was watching it is I had just a couple of months ago done a video with someone who has a YouTube channel called Christianity on the Spectrum. And
Hmm.
he was talking quite a bit about he's autistic, he's very high functional autistic,
Hmm.
very intelligent. A lot of people after my conversation with him said he's not autistic. I mean, he's just too good. But I did notice too that that format, some of the people who were there, I was looking at thinking, wow, um, there's a, one of the guy with all the curly hair. I mean, they just got back into this very short semantic battle, and I was like, I wonder to what degree, I don't know, I felt a little uncomfortable because no matter what would happen in that exchange, I don't know. It just didn't seem like human beings would be seen as given the respect that human beings deserve. I didn't find that with you at all, but with some of the individuals, there's a pedantry that can sort of emerge that it's like, well, now we're not really talking about anything, are we? Now we're playing this other ugly game that can. So I'm glad at least they have the flag things because I hope chances are enough people in the circle will sort of say, for whatever reason, I'm uncomfortable with this, make it stop, and then it stops.
Yeah, so there were people there who, first of all, just really briefly, the guy Danny who did, you're nothing. I agree with you generally about the incentives. My read was that he was not trying to make a moment. He was just really that angry because I talked to
Really?
him. Yeah, I talked to him right after, and he was talking to me about it. And I don't want to like air the private conversation on too much detail, but my sense was that was a very sincere from him. But I
Mm,
do agree that there is generally that incentive.
yeah.
And with the whole like the kind of the people who might have like autism or things like that, I do think that when you look at what sort of strength helps you become somebody who can have like a very like semantic, debate where you're kind of needling each other for hours. And if you think about some traits that, a lot of people with like autism have, for example, you can have just sort of a fascination with and a focus on a particular topic. You can be, really, really kind of comb through and pick up little things. And there are people who were there at that shoot who have told me that they are autistic.
Yeah.
And the thing is what they've taken that the strength that and this is their words, not mine. I'm not
Yeah.
characterizing this as part of their autism. They have characterized this to me as part of their autism.
Yeah.
They've taken that strength of like I pick something, and once I'm interested in it, I just want to learn about it all day, every day.
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay, so that you can kind of if that's how you are, instead of like trying to fight that, okay, well, you can kind of parlay that into something where it's like, hey, now I'm this person who is building this career analyzing these topics, right? And so I do think that kind of the debate culture can attract people who maybe have like kind of lopsided strengths and weaknesses, but their strengths are really suited for that specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, are you going to keep doing these things?
Yeah. Yeah, as long as they have me. I mean, because the thing is, like, at a certain point, people start saying, like, why are they in the video again? Why do I keep seeing them? So there's a little
Oh,
at a certain point they might park me for a while and then bring me back. So I don't know, I it's up to them. But no, if they ask me and I can do it, then yeah, I'm happy to do it.
who would you like to see in a format like that?
Really good question. And that's something that I've actually talked with some friends about who I've made through this is like, who are they going to get? Because it's like, they've done the atheists versus Christian, or atheist, then changed to atheist versus Jordan Peterson retroactively. They've done the Christians versus atheists. They have done Republican versus Democrats, Democrats versus Republican. Feminine, like they've done all these like they've done all these different ones. It's like at a certain point, I I don't know. Like I don't know who else they would get. Like I'm excited to see, but I'm really not sure who is left to get unless they start redoing the same topics with different people.
Yeah, which I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Um, I mean, but part of again, at least with the surrounded thing, the premise is adversarial. So you kind of want a topic where it's at least a potential for polarization, so you can get two sides and
Right. Right, exactly. We're not going to do surrounded pineapple on pizza. Like that's not,
right.
that's not that's not going to do views.
Well, we've done about an hour. I don't know how much you want to do. I know Ups, if you have some more stuff you want to bring in.
No, the only thing I pops into mind is that famous question from our friend Clara, the sociologist, that I will ask Greg.
Yeah.
What is your favorite ice cream flavor?
I love chocolate chip cookie dough. I'm a
Mm.
sucker for chocolate chip cookie dough, and there are places here in the Los Angeles area that are like hipster ice cream places where they're like, here, have our like garlic balsamic ice cream. And it's like, no, give me cookie dough, you weirdo.
It's good.
I don't want filet mignon sorbet.
What do you do on your YouTube channel?
Honestly, I just made it because I figured people might be interested in my perspective on the Jubilee stuff. So it's not
Uh,
very active, but when I'm in a Jubilee video that's like, okay, people are going to be interested in this, I will record a little thing like, hey, I was in the video and here's kind of some behind the scenes and here's my experience. And then people will kind of, chime in and tell me what they thought. And it's just kind of a fun way to interact with the people who watch the video because otherwise, it's just a number under the video, right? It's not really a person. And so to get people's thoughts is gratifying to me. And so yeah, I just basically it'll very occasionally post just like little recaps. And there is one from the Jordan Peterson debate
okay.
as well. Yeah,
Okay.
where I go into my thoughts and things about that a little bit, which is it's kind of probably just a truncated version of what I've said here.
When did you release it? Obviously after the release of this video.
Yeah, I uploaded it. I recorded it like a month before, and it was just based on my memory, and then I timed it to come out the day because they tell us about a week in advance, like, hey, it's coming out Sunday, and they always release it at 9 a.m. And so I just timed it to come out at 9 a.m.
Okay. Any questions for us?
How do you feel about the just speaking for yourself, how do you feel about the sort of, question of is Peterson elevating everything to the divine or is he lowering the divine to everything? Like does it hit your ear wrong a little bit when he's, like, well, if you like music, you're religious. Like does that make you think like, well, not really?
How do you want to handle this, Ups? You want to go for first and then me, or me first? What do you want to do?
Please go first.
I think you have a real point with that. Um, I part of what is difficult for people to see, this gets into the meaning of words, is that
Mhm,
the word religion, how we use it, began to be used in this way once there was the concept of the secular as
mhm,
we've had it. This is all downstream from the Protestant Reformation.
mhm,
And so I followed Peterson pretty carefully since 2017. And a lot of what he's done with people is help them see that many things that don't appear to us as necessarily religious have religious valence.
mhm,
The difficulty is that you also have a point, and that point which is, yeah, do I really worship my wife in the same way that I worship God when I'm in church? And as a pastor, you're often working these angles with people because let's say if someone has an affair and cheats on their wife, well, it's a
mhm,
real good question about why they did it because there's usually multiple reasons. But let's say if someone has, let's say, a sexual addiction, you
mhm.
might argue that sexual gratification has become their religion.
Right.
Now, in one hand, that's a very useful way to use the word to highlight the fact that having affairs has become more important than being faithful to their wife and their family.
Right.
And so it's sort of a linguistic trick to say sex has become your religion. But at the same time, words are flexible enough that most of us know that there's a real difference between one's motivation for sexual gratification and their desire to participate in a religion like Christianity or Judaism.
Right.
That there are at the same time different things going on. And so I think that's a valid thing to point to with respect to Jordan's work, that often people listen to him and they say, hey, wait a minute, there's some linguistic sleight of hand going here. But of course, if you're going to have a conversation with someone with respect to that, you're not going to do it within 1 or 2 minutes.
Right.
And once I mean, in some ways, Jordan has some perverse incentives there too, because you go on a program like this, I suspect, to reach a new audience.
Yes.
And in the culture of TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Twitter, you've got 15 or 20 seconds to grab attention. And the
Yeah.
way to do that is with a trick. And
Right.
so, and Jordan for a long time has done that when he sat down with Sam Harris and say, well, I don't think you're really an atheist.
Right. It's kind of like showmanship. Yeah, no, and the thing is interesting. This is not what I like do for work, but so as a volunteer, I've spent probably half my life at this point volunteering at like science museums and public aquariums and animal rescues and talking to the public. And it's different for you because you're a pastor and this is you do this every day for your job, but I have spent the last like 15 years talking to the public once or twice a week about concepts. And I think when you do talk to regular people, you realize that you can't just take certain things for granted or as implicit, So like, for example, saying, oh, well, I don't think that, obviously religion in a very literal sense is this and this, but you grant that and then you say, well, in a way you can kind of metaphorically compare this. It's like, okay, people will go there with you. But if you're just like, you are religious because you really like cooking, it's like, you sound insane. And it's like you have to. I think that's the thing when you are somebody who's like a professional and you're spending a lot of your time talking to other people who don't need these things spelled out. I think that can create sort of like a habit of how you communicate that doesn't translate well to a general audience.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I want to add in terms of Greg's question regarding Jordan Peterson, first of all, I acknowledge that he's not only like a psychologist, so he approaches this from that particular lens, but he assumed this role of a public commentator, like social commentator. And I really believe that there is a saying from a Spanish philosopher, tell me where you place your attention, and I will tell you who you are. So in a way, I acknowledge that, yes, he's approaching a great variety of topics. And he's not afraid to touch upon difficult topics, like especially religion. He has done all those lectures. He even had, the Exodus series, the Gospel series. I know that he's pushing for the Revelation series.
Yeah.
But I don't think that will be fruitful, but that's another question. It will not be fruitful because of the Daily Wire things that are going on. And in terms of this is definitely his approach. Like, yeah, he has this courage and he's using this psychological lens. Also into theological scripture and theological issues. but also into social commentary. He has this peculiar proclivity of asking to the other person that he's having the debate to, how he calls it, what do you mean by that exactly? Like
Yeah,
he's requesting from the other person to define
right.
exactly.
We have to do this Russian nesting doll of defining every word we use in every definition, but then it's not really reciprocal.
Yeah. So I can see that in at least in the context of the debate you had on that
Hmm.
particular claim, he tried to define consciousness, and he gave you like three different definitions.
Right.
One from the Cardinal Newman, the other from Prophet Elijah, the other one
Yeah.
from Jonah,
I had to
and,
stop him. I was like,
and
I'm sure you know so many of these. I'm like, that's so interesting. And like,
yeah.
can you
Like
stop? Can you stop
yeah,
going down this list of all the
yeah,
people who
yeah,
said this?
yeah. You actually acknowledge that he's very knowledgeable, and he told you,
Yeah.
I'm not knowledgeable. That's not
He got
the
mad at me. He was like, I'm
yeah,
not trying to impress you. And it's like, okay. Like,
yeah.
Oh,
So,
oh.
on the other hand, I also like your definition of consciousness, like what you said, like um, it's how you said it exactly. Uh,
my conscience, like how I like my ethical system.
Yeah. What allows me to distinguish right from wrong, something like that, if I am not mistaken. So, yeah, I am expecting Jordan Peterson to continue down that route,
Yeah.
because it seems to me to be like a feature and not a bug of his
It's it's just
of
kind
his
of his
business.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I imagine the one thing that I think he's gonna need to accept is, I told him, well, in common parlance, and then he kind of cut me off. He's like, well, I don't care about common parlance. I'm trying to get to something fundamental. And it's like, if you don't care about common parlance, then you don't care about being understood at a certain point. And I imagine he would say he cares about being understood. And I think that that's sort of a conflict in his approach. And that is where I think you get, for example, like I've noted again, there's this kind of outcry of Christians because I'm assuming that there isn't, I'm not the pastor in this group of us here, but I'm assuming there's no verse in the Bible like "Thou shall be super duper cagey about whether or not you're Christian," right? Like that's, and so, so it's just this like people find it frustrating, and it's like is he that's the if you want people to understand you, you have to care about using words as they are understood, and you can walk people to your interesting thing, right? But you have to get them there. You can't just
Yeah.
expect them to teleport over to where you are currently.
I think
Yeah.
in Jordan's case, Jordan had a profound effect on a certain number of people about 9 years ago, 8 years ago, 7 years ago. And that's sort of where I came in
Right.
and I worked with a lot of these people and I continue to have relationships with a lot of these people. And he's that was sort of a moment in time, and that moment has passed. I mean,
Right.
there was something that happened, and I think I think he'd like to see that time come again. I don't know that it will because there's just way too many variables in something like that. He
Yeah.
helped a lot of people, improved a lot of people's lives. I wonder if he looks at people like Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk because they're the ones that tend to go into an environment like this, and it's all
Yeah.
this, you know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And again, with Jordan, I don't think I just don't think that's his game.
Right.
I think actually I continue to say on my channel, I mean, before C16 and everything that happened to him, he was a clinical psychologist and a university professor. And as a university professor of both undergrads and grad students, you have big areas of space to do all sorts of research and nuance and talk things through in a collegial environment. And as a clinical psychologist, you're sitting one on one in a room and you're going to be devoting hours and hours and hours and hours of carefully looking at distinctions and doing it collaboratively with someone. And he says again and again that he doesn't like combative talk. But the strange thing for me was, then why on earth would you go on that
Yeah.
program?
Yeah.
Now, Charlie Kirk, I get it. Ben Shapiro, I get it because that's their shtick.
Right.
So,
And that goes back to where I don't know. This is funny because Danny, the guy who looks like he's 19 and was said you're nothing, he said to Jordan in like a very kind of like taunting way, like, "Do you know where you are?"
yeah,
But like not in a disrespectful way. I don't know if to what extent he understood like what the program was. I don't know if he'd watched it, and that's like right, like you're someone as famous as he is, you have a team, you have people who say, "Hey, we've booked this for you." I don't know what he understood, but I think like a good sort of heuristic for Jordan was like it would be like any program that opens up with like string music from like a classical music composite, right? That's where you need to be, right? You need a fancy chair and a scotch, and it's 3 hours long, and it's today, Dr. Jordan Peterson, right? That is the sort of like blood sports, like octagon thing. I don't think that's his lane. That's okay. It
yeah,
doesn't have to be.
yeah. No, I agree. And to me, so that lends questions that it's funny because I had recorded a video on Friday that actually I planned on releasing today, which was I've been watching Jordan's public life quite closely for a number
Mm.
of years. And I do have questions about his handling because, again, something like this guy is astoundingly busy. He's got all these irons in the
Yeah.
fire. And then someone in his world thinks it would be good for you to go on this show. And maybe they asked
Right.
him, here's a show. And he'd be like, okay. But I mean, what you said about the first introduction he gives is
Hmm.
like, oh, and I've seen him in a number of times step up and do something, and I wonder, do you have you sort of read the room here in terms
Right.
of as someone on stage who has to perform, and he says a pastor is a weird job because you have all these different elements, but part of my job is in fact performance. When I'm
Yeah.
behind a pulpit on a stage talking to people, that is a performance. And so you have to take all of that into consideration if you want to be effective in that arena.
Right.
And I watched this and I thought, who's managing this?
Yeah.
Because that's not where I would have placed him.
Yeah, and and to me, like I think that I'm not an academic myself. I wouldn't call myself an academic. My first ever Jubilee appearance, I think I was like I'm involved in the scientific world because I've co-authored some stuff with my friend who teaches, but like I have met academics, and when you're an academic, you're very very good at a very specific thing, and it's very aware of you. You're very aware of the fact that that other people who aren't good at this, they don't even know what they don't know, right? And so the same way that someone who's really good at like a blood sports debate doesn't know anything about clinical psychology and Jungian analysis, the inverse is also true, right? There's probably a lot of stuff that Jordan Peterson, as an academic, doesn't even know that he doesn't know about having to put on this performance in this, in this kind of arena, right? And so I think that is something where it would be helpful for at least the people around him to just be more cognizant of that, like, hey, he's really good at this. Let's have him do this thing that he's good at.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Two quick points. Paul recently released a video, the Fat Thor one, Paul.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great video, by the way. In that video, he was making the point that Jordan Peterson, maybe in his interactions with the different guests, he has this eternal sense of, once again, prophylicity, using
Okay.
that term.
Yeah.
So if he's speaking with Elon Musk, as Paul said, or if he's speaking with, I don't know, Peter Thiel, he will assign a different tone he will be more leaning forward. He will allow more space to, he will listen more. He will actively listen to the speaker. But if his sense of the debater is like, this guy is, his status is lesser than mine, then I will be the one speaking,
Yeah.
Um,
And that's a
so,
mistake. You should,
yeah,
I'm no Jordan Peterson, right? Don't ask me to give a 10-hour lecture on like, the Book of Genesis, but like, just I think that is just from a communication standpoint, that's a huge mistake because it comes off. People will pick up on how you feel about the person you're talking to.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And quickly, the other point, basically, it's a speculation. I wouldn't be surprised, Paul, if Jubilee um, bought an exhibition space within ARC.
You think so?
Maybe.
So ARC is an alliance for responsible citizenship, which is an organization that Jordan Peterson helped start. It meets in
Okay.
London every 16 months or so. And so yeah, that's been something that I participated in. And
Interesting.
yeah.
Jubilee does do sort of offsite stuff. Like there's a music festival coming up, and
Hmm.
they're producing a video at that music festival, and they're casting right now with like people who are going to be attending, I think. And so they do sometimes do these sort of collaborations where they will film one of their videos at an event. So who knows?
Interesting. Super interesting. Well, Greg, I sure appreciate your time.
Yeah.
And this has been super enlightening for me just to have, because I make videos, so I understand, but it's just helpful to recognize that there are lots of layers to this thing
Yeah.
and to watch it with a little bit of information. Anything you want to pitch or promote?
Not really. Yeah. I mean, thank you for talking with me, you guys. This was really interesting, and I hope it was valuable to the audience.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
people, trust me, people like it, and you might get more emails. So
Cool.
just
All
warning you.
right. Yeah. Email away.
All right, here I'm going to end the recording.